I really think it's less about what gender you're fucking. Like if you're queer or you're bisexual or you identify outside of the straight narrative, then you're already going to be having queer sex with somebody, no matter what gender they are. And
For
it's
sure.
all about really fucking owning that for yourself.
Well, hello, my bis and allies, and welcome back to another episode of Bisexual Behavior. I'm your host, Talia Cass, and it is currently almost 9 o'clock p.m. on a Wednesday night, the day before I'm supposed to release this episode, and I am nothing but a procrastinator. But we'll get through it, and I'm so excited to share this episode. I'm sure a good portion of you can relate to this concept of being a baby gay, whether that means you just came out, or maybe it's 4 years since you've been out, or maybe you've been out for a really long time, but you're in a relationship with the opposite gender and you haven't really explored your queerness in a while. But this idea of being a baby gay is something that we talk a lot about in this episode. And I was able to get a somatic sexologist on this episode to talk about queer intimacy and building confidence as you're exploring your queerness and, learning more about your identity. And their name is Jordana Ezra. And we had such an awesome conversation. I'm sure that a lot of you can relate to being nervous about not really fitting into the queer scene because maybe you don't have the experience and you just, are maybe nervous about your first queer sex experience. And this is the perfect episode to listen to. I know that I definitely had that experience and we talk about that a lot. And while this episode is very much focused on like the sapphic experience and like building confidence in your body and this concept of pussy worship, I think that this can relate to a lot of different people of different genders, and even if you don't have a pussy, I think that there's a lot of concepts you could take from this, whether it's like building a connection with your body before you can really enjoy and experience pleasure with others, and how you can better build a connection with your own intimacy, and how that can really not only shape your sexuality, but also your gender identity and just that connection with your body and yourself, and just, all these things that I didn't really think about. But Jordy is really well-spoken on sex and intimacy, and especially with the nuance of being queer and especially, being a baby gay. So I'm really excited to share this episode with you all. And without further ado, here's Jordy. Jordy, welcome to Bisexual Behavior. I'm so excited to have you on. And just so listeners are aware, this is the first, official podcast episode that I'm recording for the second season. So I'm so excited to have you, Jordy. Welcome to the show.
Yay! I'm so excited to be here. And I love that this is, like a start of a new season. Seems super delicious.
Yes. Okay. So the biggest thing that's different about recording for the second season is in the first season, I recorded exclusively in my closet. And I'm so excited that now I'm actually in a room that is specifically for this podcast. So I've made it up in the world a little bit. So it's very exciting.
I love this for you. Although I'm sad that I didn't get the closet version. That sounds equally as fun.
It was very cramped for me. So
I can imagine. I've definitely done like some recordings for clients, like deep in the closet, like no one please talk to me kind of vibe. So yeah, I love that you've made it up in the world a bit.
That's right. I painted a spare bedroom and I made it work. So Jordy, I am so excited to talk to you. You are a queer sex coach. So why don't you introduce yourself to our listeners and share your pronouns and all of that fun stuff?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm a somatic sexologist. My pronouns are they, she. I work predominantly in the queer community. I love working with like baby gays, so people that are either just coming out or are coming out later in life. That is my main kind of jam. I love to help them integrate internalized homophobia. That is something that I had a lot of when I originally decided that I wanted to experience more queer pleasure. But yeah, that's me. I'm a bisexual lesbian. I know that's like a little bit of a weird like identity.
No, I've heard
But
that before, actually. Like,
yeah.
so can you describe, like, what does that mean exactly?
Mhm. So for me, a bisexual lesbian means that I'm really like attracted to every kind of gender for sure. Like I love having sex with penis and pussy, but I definitely like lean more towards wanting to deepen into love with pussy owners, whether they're like non-binary or any kind of gender of pussy owner. I just feel that for me, it's a really spiritual experience to have sex with pussy, but like I do love getting slippery with the dick, 100%.
I mean, like, I can totally get that. What is it that have you seen the show Hacks, where one of the main characters is bisexual and she talks about how she loves being with women, but sometimes she really needs to get it in with the dick. And I was like, I get it. I get it. Sometimes you just, even if it's a strap on, sometimes you got a dick down.
Mm.
So,
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And I just feel like I had so much, and I'm sure that we can like talk about this as the show progresses, but so much like biphobia. Like I didn't want anybody to call me like bisexual at all. So yeah, like in the last couple of years, I've really just like been owning that I actually love to sit on dick and not being like ashamed of that and still really owning my like how gay I am and how much of a lesbian I really am.
yeah, so that's something really interesting to bring up is that it's not just about only exclusively being with like the same sex or just with another pussy owner, but like that you can still be queer, but maybe be getting dick, maybe be, in a relationship with a man. Like, what makes you at the end of the day most bisexual? Or I guess I'll say, what is your most bisexual behavior?
Oh, I love this question. So I guess what really solidified my bisexuality to me like last year was this like underlying attraction towards a whole array of genders. And I actually like went to Europe last year for a girl, and it didn't work out. And I went on this dick tour, right? I was just like, I need to get this like out of my system. So I went on like a little bit of a dick tour around Europe, and I was like documenting this, but not really like speaking about it like on my platform until I came back. But it was definitely like the most bisexual thing ever. Like I'm going over to Europe for a fucking pussy, and then I'm leaving. Only slept like I think I slept with like 10 penises, and I was like, wow, it's just very like bisexual slash almost straight behavior.
That's
But
like, what a way to experience Europe. I love that.
yes, oh my gosh, it was actually so fun. Mhm.
But I think that's also really powerful in itself that you can be queer, but also own that like I want to just be with a woman at the end of the day, and that sexuality is really fluid. It doesn't have to look one way. You can be a straight bisexual, you can be a lesbian bisexual, that there's so many different ways of
Mm.
being bisexual. So I guess I'm curious, like, how did you get into being a queer sex coach? That sounds like the coolest job ever, if I might say so myself.
Mm. Yeah, I actually pinch myself daily. Like it is the best job in the entire world, and I'm so deeply grateful that I get to have this career. So I studied not the whole degree, but I studied Chinese medicine at uni, and I always like had this idea that I was going to be this Chinese medicine doctor. And yeah, I've really always been into like holistic medicine my whole life. I've had many of the different phases, like only eating organic, like being vegan, like all of those different things. And yeah, I guess like the missing piece that I was really experiencing when I was studying Chinese medicine was this disconnect with my body and my pleasure. I was in a straight, like passing relationship at the time, and I faked every single orgasm for 7 years. And I just felt so disconnected to my pussy, so disconnected to pleasure, like in general, even. And I just had this, like, almost, I just couldn't deal with my body. And that's why I was on that journey of like holistic medicine, because I always felt like there was something wrong with my body, and I was always trying to fix it, trying to fix my pleasure, trying to fix anything that I was deeming as broken. And yeah, I almost got married to this person. And I had this realization when all of that was going down that actually, like, I want to experience things with women. I want to experience things with like different genders. And I when I started to do that, I felt extremely nervous and even more disconnected to my pussy. And that really shocked me. And I was like, wow, like I have this extreme performance anxiety when I'm trying to have sex with somebody else's pussy. I don't even know what I want. I can't fucking articulate that to anyone. So no wonder I'm not having these like amazing sexual experiences that I'm reading about. I'm
Mhm.
like, when do I get those? Like, where are they? Like, it's not happening to me. And that kind of led me on a path to, yeah, discovering Layla Martin, who is the teacher, the main teacher that I worked with. She runs a school to become like a somatic sexologist. I did that for like a couple of years and then just went down like the Tantra path and the kink path. And all of that has kind of led me to this space. But my performance anxiety when experiencing queer sex is 100% the catalyst to what kind of got me into this space.
That's incredible. And like, I feel like a lot of the things that you're mentioning really resonates with me. I was somebody who I came out to when I was in like a straight partnership as well. We were together for a couple of years, and that's when I really started to feel like I was missing some sort of desire or something about myself specifically. And what you're saying like really resonates about like feeling ashamed of my own body and not being able to experience pleasure. And I think a lot of people don't really put together that maybe they realize that or the reason why they're not experiencing mind-blowing sex is because it has to do more with something inside them. And it makes me
Mhm.
think too, like I was reading a lot of Reddit posts about like women who are with men and they come out and they finally have sex with a woman and it's like the most mind-blowing thing. But I also don't think that's super accurate because for me, it was like it felt the same. Like it still felt like I was being intimate with someone and I was being insecure about myself or whatever. Even if it was enjoyable, there's still always that like insecurity about myself. So when you're saying that, it's almost like you kind of have to start within, that really resonated
Mm.
with me. But that's really interesting about like your pathway to getting there. So what types of people do you work with in your practice?
I mainly work with pussy owners that have just kind of come out. I definitely work with people like on all spectrums of queerness, seasoned lesbians, trans royalty, everybody that's having a lived experience outside of heteronormativity is definitely who I work with. I just personally have a soft spot for, yeah, for baby gays or for people that are like coming out later in life. I love to help them unravel any of the blockages or like the internalized homophobia that could be, yeah, creating sexual dysfunction or like impacting like how they're functioning sexually in the bedroom. Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned baby gaze a lot, which is a term I've heard a ton. It's something that I like still kind of feel like I am, even though I've been out for probably 4 to 5
Same.
years. Yeah, but like, okay, so what exactly is a baby gay, and like, what are the main kind of things that you hear, like questions or issues that you hear when you're working with them?
Oh, so I guess I would define like a lot of people don't really love that term baby gay. I just really love it. Like it feels like a really soft and really beautiful like in my body. So that's why I use it. And like you, like even though I've been out for a while, I still feel like quite a baby gay. And I think I define it in a way that it's somebody that's just kind of exploring their queerness, but they've mainly been in straight passing relationships. They've mainly been living that like het life. And now they're exploring their sexuality outside of heteronormativity. Sorry, what was the last part of the question?
Oh yeah, no problem. I know I asked like three questions before like the person even
I
answers. I'm
love
like, wait, I
it.
need to chill out. So what are like the most common questions or
Mm.
situations that you get working with baby gays?
Yeah. So I definitely think the most common thing that people come to me with is I'm really scared to eat pussy. I'm feeling like I'm feeling so nervous to eat pussy. And even like I'm nervous to be in the queer scene. I don't know how to date girls. I don't know how to approach women. And there's this like underlying narrative that I constantly see that because we have similar anatomy, that we should 100% know what to do with every single pussy that we're in front of. And that actually like exacerbates like the performance anxiety a lot. So yeah, that is 100% number one thing. I guess like I hear a lot of I'm feeling shame as well.
Mhm.
Like, you know, I do work with a lot of people that are still in straight marriages and don't want to leave their marriages.
Mhm.
And I think that that's really beautiful as well. Like, I don't think we need to burn the whole bridge down. It's more about acknowledging our sexuality. And then from that space, like conversations will definitely come up. So yeah, like it's how to navigate my sexuality now that I'm deciding that it's too painful to ignore it anymore.
Interesting. Okay, so you mentioned a lot of different pathways that people experience. One that I find, I want to discuss probably all of them if you're okay with that, but one I think in
Sure.
particular that stands out is when I think about a lot of my listeners, it's a lot of people who are with the same partners that they've been with, and maybe they came out during that time. So when you work with particular, clients or couples who are in that experience, what have you usually done to help them? Like, say, for example, if they're monogamous, what kinds of practices can help somebody feel like they're in their own queerness as they're coming out and supported by their partner without having to necessarily explore that? And that could even like be in, bed if there's intimacy that you usually recommend or things of that nature. But
Yeah, I love this question.
mm,
So, like, if somebody came to me and they were monogamous and loving their partnership, but like really wanted to explore their queerness, I would definitely guide them on an inner journey to start to build a relationship with that part of them. And that can look like so many different things. It can look like having a self-pleasure practice where you're welcoming in your queerness, where you're
mm,
really welcoming in these new forms of relating with your pleasure, with your sexuality. I'd probably guide them to set up a space where like we can explore that together, where they can touch themselves in a way that feels a lot more queer. And then I would also help them have conversations within that partnership where they can really understand how they can bring more queer relating into that space. I really think it's less about what gender you're fucking. Like if you're queer, or you're bisexual or you identify outside of the straight narrative, then you're already going to be having queer sex with somebody, no matter what gender they are. And
for
it's
sure.
all about really fucking owning that for yourself. So understanding like what messages they were taught, how that is impacting them, and creating, a new relationship with their queerness. And that can be on such a deep sensational level as well. Like, we're not just talking about like our mind here. Like, I do a lot of work that I do is in the body. Like it's not talk therapy. It's like understanding like the sensational qualities of how certain things feel for you and relating to them. So what I mean by relating to them is going internally and feeling that. Like feeling what your queerness feels like to you, and how can you have conversations from that space? How can you have sex with your partner from that space? How can you honor that? And how can you invite your partner into that space of honoring that with you?
That's so cool. That's something I've been kind of practicing in my own life. So I have a long-term male partner. So I went for a couple years where I was exclusively dating women, and then met my partner. We were friends and coworkers for a year, and then just things ended up as they ended up. And I feel like it's interesting going back to being with men again, because I felt like there's so many things that I brought to intimacy that I didn't have before I, came out and had queer experiences, that it made me feel like, oh, it is so possible for you to feel queer in so many different ways outside of just like the genitals or gender of somebody that you're with, which I found really interesting. And then bringing it back to again to baby days. And I remember that fear of being intimate with a another woman for the first time, and like how terrifying that is. And then, you hear people saying, well, you have the same thing, so it should be easy. But I don't know about
Yeah.
you, but any guy that I've been with likes different things. So of course, the same will be for any women, and women are going to like things that you might not like, or, vice versa. So yeah, I'm curious to see about like what kind of advice you give about like getting over that hump of being afraid of like going down on a woman or pleasuring a woman, and if it maybe it's extends more than just being afraid of the actual genitalia because it's a new experience, but maybe like the things that come behind with it.
Yeah, I love this question so much. You know, pussy is it's a scary thing, you know.
Hmm.
And I personally really feel that because like we aren't really taught a lot about pussy growing up, there is kind of this shame that might have been learnt that comes with pussy, you know. We weren't born like being ashamed of pussy, but like throughout our life, through, you know, not being taught, number one, in school, that like women's pleasure is so amazing. It's so delicious. There's so many ways that we can have it. You know, maybe like in when we're growing up, like in our family home, maybe we're not taught that this is the most magical part of us. Like we're taught to hide it. We're taught to kind of like be ashamed of it, like maybe not outwardly, but the pussy is really hidden. When you think of a penis, right? Like you think of a dick and it's like there. It's like
Yeah.
out, it's proud, right? Like a pussy is fairly hidden, you know? And a lot of I mean, I fucking personally didn't even get a hand mirror and have a look at my pussy until I was maybe like 25.
Mm.
And a lot of people that I work with have like never even really like had a look at their pussy. And yeah, I also dated quite a lot of people when I grew up that and had different experiences, had weird experiences, had things said to me about my pussy that definitely like impacted me. And that's what led me to
Mm.
fake so many orgasms, was that I really felt that I wasn't worthy of receiving pleasure. I really felt that I didn't want anybody to look at my pussy. I was always worried about how my pussy smelled. I was always worried about the way that it looked. And this really like impacted obviously how much I could let go in sex, how much I felt like yeah, I was worthy of receiving pleasure. And I think that gets amplified when we first have sex with a pussy because we are coming in front of, we are basically like witnessing a pussy. And if we haven't witnessed our own pussy in like a way where, you know, we completely honor it, where we are in awe of it, then those feelings are going to come up. And even if we can't acknowledge them in the moment or we don't know what they're there from, yeah, it can definitely like cause anxiety, performance anxiety, sexual shutdown, this like feeling of, I don't know what to do. Because you're so right. Every penis is different. Every pussy is so different. Even if we learn every single technique that there ever is under the sun to fuck a pussy in a good way, every pussy is different. So what worked for somebody previously might not work for somebody else. And the best thing that anybody can do to really unravel this performance anxiety, to really start to feel confident worshiping pussy, is to create this deeply devotional relationship with your own pussy. Really learn the art of pussy worship for yourself. Begin to create a vocabulary where you have the confidence to ask somebody what they want and where you can confidently articulate what your own pussy desires so that you can actually have sex that feels fucking amazing.
Yeah, that's incredible. I wonder if that same kind of concept can be brought over to any type of gender or genital
Mhm.
having, so be it. It's almost like understanding your body and your sexuality and that confidence coming out, in your sex life. That's such a cool concept. So another thing for baby gays, I feel like is, this idea of like, I don't have the street cred that others have. Like I've only had experience with men. Do you feel like that is something that the other partner needs to know? Do you think that they need to be aware of that you maybe have only had experiences with men and not with women? What have you, I guess, talked to your previous clients about in the past with that?
Mhm. Yeah, that's such an interesting question. I think like maybe a couple of years ago, I would have said like, it's so good to have this conversation to be like, yes, I'm a baby gay, like, you know, this is the first pussy that I've experienced. But honestly, I feel like every situation, I think it's just like, well, every situation is different. So if that is going to create more safety for you, if that is going to allow you to feel more held in that space, then I would definitely like invite that conversation of, yeah, like this is my first time. I'd love to be like guided. But if you feel like that's unnecessary for you, then I don't think that that conversation is a make or break thing that absolutely needs to be said. Yeah.
Yeah. And almost it's like at the same time, like I've had a previous guest where they talked about like the concept of virginity not being real and that like
Mm,
um I don't know that it doesn't need to have all this attention that it currently is having because it just puts this whole I guess spotlight on the idea of heterosexual sex and just like praising the penis for that being the only thing that counts as losing your virginity. So I feel like it
right.
almost comes back to that. It's if you're in a comfortable space, then why do you need to disclose? But that's just something I've seen a lot of baby gays ask on different forums. But also curious, you
Yeah.
mentioned internalized homophobia before. Do you find that that's something that can also impact your intimacy and being completely open with another partner?
Yeah, 100%. I feel like the stories that we carry around and the conditions that we um internalize, like I definitely see this with like my own like internalized homophobia and like biphobia as well, like the fact that like there is such so much bi-erasure in this world. It's and so much homophobia as well. It's really hard to live in this space where heteronormativity is overly glorified and not internalize these pieces. And because there are pieces of our body, parts of our body and mind that really want to keep us safe. And that really translates into belonging in society as like a big part of survival. Yeah, these pieces of us, if they're looking outside and they're like, oh, okay, majority of the world is straight, and we actually get rewarded if we're straight. It's very glorified, it's very neon signed. Are we even going to survive? Are we even going to belong in society? And I really feel like that's such a deep part of internalized homophobia as well. Like however we witness like queer messages, bi messages growing up, how that gets stored in our body definitely affects the way that we're having sex. And this can show up as shame. It can show up as sexual shutdown. It can show up as really just like needing to prove your sexuality to people, feeling like your sexuality is not valid, feeling overly confused. All of those are symptoms of internalized homophobia. And the biggest way that I've really seen this being unraveled so that people can have amazing sex is by understanding where those messages came from, how you actually witnessed homophobia and like biphobia growing up, where they came from. Like, was it school? Was it religion? Was it media? And feeling into how that actually feels in the body, like really going there because by ignoring it, like it's just going to sneak up on you and like really, really start to come in. And often, what I found with my clients is there is like a piece of us, maybe it's like an inner child piece or like a younger piece that was most impacted. And by re educating these parts of us with like a new fucking narrative that like, being queer is really safe, like it's really delicious, you can take your time, all of those fucking things, yeah, if we can really re-educate these parts of us, then we're less likely to go into this space of shame, of yeah, of having all of these things internalized, of sexual shutdown during sex. And yeah, I've really found that unraveling that and creating new beliefs around it is a really powerful thing.
So, Jordy, a lot of what you're talking about is actually making me think a little bit more of like internalized misogyny as well. And like what made me think of that specifically is when I was a baby gay, I think I was in particular really afraid of being intimate with another woman because I was afraid of my own body and just that like I've always been taught that like vaginas are gross, that they smell, that they're supposed to look perfect, not like this or that. And it's just I think it's one of those things that I was worried that if another woman saw it, that it would be judgmental or if there'd be, I don't know, discomfort with it. I think that it's like we're taught to hate women so much that our lives that when it comes to being intimate with other women, it can be so scary because you're afraid that they're going to put the same judgment on you that society has. So I'm
Mm.
just curious if that's something that you've ever kind of encountered in your practice, if you have know of any other clients who have kind of described the same type of thing.
Yeah, definitely. I have experienced that 100%. I'm really resonating with what you're saying. Um, yeah, I read this book recently. It's called like The Tragedy of Heterosexuality, and it really talks a lot about internalized misogyny and how we are so deeply taught to hate women. And I think honestly, like that is what makes it so scary. Like when we're in front of a pussy, like, you know, we judge ourselves and we judge other women and we have this like deep comparison as well. Like we're really pitted against each other, like our
Mhm.
whole lives. And when we're relating with another woman, it really can all come to the surface. This is like such a deep reason also why I love what I do and why I do this kind of work, because when you start to relate with a woman after many years of relating with men, all of this stuff does come up. Like everything fucking
Mhm.
comes up when you're fucking a pussy. I don't know why, but like all of this like internalized bullshit from like the conditioning of the patriarchy and the world that we live in today really comes to the forefront to be witnessed and to be seen. And I think being in a queer relationship or having queer sex is it's just a fucking personal development journey on crack.
No, it really is. I was just gonna say, like, my transition of just liking my body has changed significantly since being intimate with other women or just being in queer relationships in general. And I feel like I'm now in a place where it's like there's no kind of sense of shame or guilt about my own body, and I wouldn't feel that way
Right.
about somebody else's body. And I don't know if that's just getting older, if that's just like part of the journey, but I feel like coming out of the other side of it, I can really see that a lot of that was just like growing up with like internalized homophobia, internalized misogyny. And what an excellent transition
100%.
into what I've discovered as researching you before this interview is that you talk a lot about this thing called pussy worship, and I must know more about that.
Mm. Yeah, I love pussy worship so much. And it really does relate back to body, like body love, you
Right.
know.
Hmm.
I feel like as women, we are fucking born into this diet culture. We're born into this like one body that's glorified. And if we look a little bit not like that, then God damn, we have to go through so much stuff to really find our innate worth. And that's where worshipping our bodies really comes in because, you know, our bodies are going to change. They're always manifesting a little bit differently, no matter like, you know, where we're on in our cycle, how old we are, like different things like that. It's ridiculous to think that we're only worthy of amazing pleasure if we look a certain way. And when it comes to like worshiping somebody else's pussy or having really good sex, like really, really good queer sex, it really does come down to knowing that you're worthy of being worshipped, knowing that, yeah, your pussy is worthy of having somebody buried like deep in it for like hours and not feeling like, oh my God, am I taking too long or do I smell? Or, you know, I hope that they like the look of my pussy. And yeah, this is where this concept of worship has really come in for me because, you know, when I started studying this, I was like, I'm going to learn how to do everything. I'm going to be so good at like the strap. I'm going to be like amazing at fingering. Like, I'm going to get like the best fucking tongue tactic techniques to eat somebody's pussy with. And I'm just going to be so fucking good at it. And while it's like some of that worked, I definitely still had a lot of shame. I definitely still felt like I felt good at giving head, but I felt like I couldn't lie there and actually receive for a long period of time or like fucking 10 minutes. Like I felt like I would get in my head pretty fast and be like, oh my God, like, is this really gross for them? And yeah, so for me, that's where pussy worship really came in. And to really start the journey of pussy worship, I think it all really comes down to building this like devotional relationship with your pussy. Nobody wants their pussy to be rushed. Nobody wants sex to be like this wham bam thing. And we have to slow down with ourselves. So I, yeah, I have like a 5-step process where I really love to guide people into this experience of worshiping their pussy. And basically, it is just taking back this male gaze, right? Like really taking back this gaze that we've been born into and gazing at your own pussy and really having that new gaze, really having that looking at your pussy from a perspective of, wow, this is like a really beautiful part of my anatomy. This is like a temple in this space. This is a place where I'm allowed to feel so much pleasure and starting to unravel. Like it's going to be fucking uncomfortable. I'm not going to lie. Like the first time I looked at my pussy, I was like, I'm not sure about this. Maybe this is a little bit of a train wreck. And, moving past that, continuing to gaze at your pussy, taking things really slow, touching every part of your vulva. A lot of the times, like we're only touching our clit and like, our internal vagina. And we're not really giving like the whole vulva a good like massage to understand like what parts of our pussy really like to be touched. Another thing that I really love to do is like bringing my awareness into my pussy. And I guess like anyone that's listening now, you can do this like while you're still listening. It's just bringing these parts of you that can hear us speaking on this podcast into your pussy for a second and feeling what that feels like, really feeling like if there is a little bit of a pulse there, is there a little bit of an experience that you can feel on a sensational level, and start to really devote yourself to understanding what your pussy wants, understanding like your yes, your no's, your maybes. Our no's have been overridden for like an entire lifetime, I guarantee, because a lot of people don't really know what their yes, no, and their maybe feels like. So understanding like all of these things, but being slow with yourself, placing your hands on your pussy, even do that now, like just feel the warmth there, like feel what it feels like to connect with like your vulva and begin to relate to it in a devotional way. And I 100% guarantee that your sex life will blow up.
Hell yeah. And I feel like it's also a good reminder that a lot of other vulva havers probably are experiencing something very similar, whether it's having
Definitely.
shame over their bodies, having shame over their sexuality, things of that nature. It's everyone has probably had the same questions of like, does my vulva look normal? Like things like that. Like I feel like getting over the fact that like every single person has probably had that same thought has also been very helpful for me in a sense too. But
Yeah.
I love this idea of pussy worship and it being more about yourself. But I'm curious if there's like ways to, if this like concept translates to say if you're feeling maybe at a loss of your own sexuality, or like maybe you're not, like you're having gender dysphoria, is that, would you recommend kind of a similar thing for someone who's experiencing that? Or
Yeah, like if somebody's having like gender dysphoria, excuse me, or like low libido or anything like that, or feeling like pretty like disconnected, I definitely would recommend like taking like things off the table. Like, this isn't really about like being multi-orgasmic or knowing like everything about your body. It's about taking things slow and really like unraveling different stories, different feelings that come up around like your gender, around like your pussy, and being okay with what is there in the moment. Like we're all going to go through seasons, we're all going to go through cycles, and I'm a big believer in welcoming in whatever experience you're having in the moment. And, you know, with your body, with your gender, with your sexuality, and not needing it to be anything other than what it is, because it's in that acceptance and it's in that experience of, okay, I'm just going to be here with what is coming up for me, that you're going to find a lot more freedom. You're going to find that it's easier to be with whatever is there for you. And you're going to find the beauty in it, you know, whether it is like you discover that you love the gender that you're experiencing in the moment and you're okay for it to flow and be fluid, or maybe it's that you need some space with your pleasure, with your libido, with the pressure that you're putting on yourself. With clarity and acceptance, I think a lot of different things can stop feeling like you can stop feeling like you're broken, because you're not broken. Nobody needs to be fixed. Like nobody actually needs to ever come and see me. And it's never about like people feeling like they need to fix themselves. It's really about honoring what's happening for you and being there for it, like opening up yourself to like your whole human experience.
It's incredible because I feel like if you're not opening yourself up to the whole human experience, you're not able to listen to another partner to be able to get to that intimacy that you need to get at. So it's like interesting that it's just all connected. And I think sometimes we tend to ignore those things. Like you hear those corny lines of like, you're not going to be able to love someone until you love yourself. But like, what does that mean? And I just feel like it's almost like an inner child work, it sounds like in a way. And I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but it does sound like it all kind of circles back to just being your true self and accepting your queerness all around.
Yeah, I feel like authentically, like being in your authentic, like sexual expression is really about like being okay with whatever is coming up from you for you at the time. And it is really about like inner child healing and yeah, just taking it back to like being confident in front of like somebody else's pussy. The reason why I think pussy worship and like really accepting yourself on these levels is paramount, is because you get into this transmission, into this embodiment of like complete awe for yourself and complete acceptance for yourself. And I mean, like I say complete acceptance, and it's a fucking lifetime journey, right? Like there's still things where I'm like, why is this happening to me? Like it's not like I wake up and I'm like fucking enlightened with acceptance. Like it's a daily fucking practice. But if you can get into that space, you can really have the embodiment of accepting somebody else's pussy. And when you can bring that into a sexual space, or like you can accept somebody else's like human experience, it like that is one of the most intimate, delicious things that you can offer anyone. Imagine like you opening up your legs and feeling that whoever is looking at your pussy is just like, wow, this is the most beautiful thing I have ever seen in my life, and I feel so honored that I get to worship it. And yeah, I'm really here for your sexuality. That is so fucking healing in itself. And that really can't happen until you've embodied that for yourself. And that is like the sole reason why I'm obsessed with this, because it creates such an attuned safety for both people experiencing the pleasure, both people in the partnership. And yeah, it's really beautiful.
So, moral of the story is to not only worship your partner's pussy, but to worship your own.
Yes, 100%. Yeah.
That's great. Jordy, you have given me so much great like information, just even like in any queer like journey in your queerness. I just feel like it's a good reminder to just like check in with yourself and your own intimacy. And like, and another thing is that things are constantly changing. Like I might feel connected with my own like pussy intimacy now, but that's not to say in 5 months something could happen and I might need to like relook at myself. So I just feel like you're giving some really great like reminders and things to think about that I think my listeners are really gonna love. But is there anything else that you'd like to add that you haven't really discussed that, that we could dive into? We can always talk about pussy some more. I mean.
I mean, like, yeah, I love pussy so much. No, I feel like if anybody's listening to this and they're feeling a little bit confused about, their sexuality, or they're feeling like performance anxiety, that it's okay. Like, it's definitely I just want everybody that listens to this to know that they're not broken.
Mhm.
Like, yeah, it takes a little bit of time. But if you can take 5 minutes a day to really look at your pussy, to create this devotional relationship, then the performance anxiety is definitely going to back off. And, wherever you're at on your queer journey, you are so valid in any community as well. Like, I know that, yeah, being a part of the queer community can feel really intimidating. And yeah, shake that off, babe. You get to be whoever you want to be in any space in the world.
That's right.
Yeah, 100%. If you are listening to this and you want further like guidance on really feeling deeply connected to your pussy, or unraveling like internalized homophobia, I'm not going to offer this to any other podcast because I'm quite busy right now, but I really would love to say that, yeah, feel free to. I'll send Talia a link for this, but you can book in for a free session where I will like directly guide you on how to personally create a devotional relationship with your pussy, or we can dive into unraveling internalized homophobia so that you can feel wildly confident in however your sexuality is showing up moment to moment, and you can actually thrive in your queerness.
Awesome, Jordy. Thank you so much for offering that to my listeners. I think that they're going to love that. And again, I have so many people who listen to this podcast who are in all different experiences, whether they're baby gays or, maybe they're have been out for a while, but are in, a heterosexual partnership. I just feel like there's so many people who can utilize like a queer sex coach just at any point in their lives. So I really appreciate you doing that and just taking the time to talk with me. But and I'm going to put all those details in the show notes with the link and everything, but where can people follow you and find you?
Yeah, so the main platform that I'm on is Instagram, at the Queer Sex Coach. It's no E in sex because censorship is a
Ah,
bit.
that's right.
Like that's the main way that you can find me, or on my website, www.jordanaezra.com. You're in America, right?
I am. And I was like so excited. You're the first person from Australia that I've interviewed. So I was like really pumped, but also so
Oh my
nervous. We
God.
wouldn't have been able to make a time work, but I'm so glad we were able to.
Yes, I love that. I'm actually coming to America in August. I'm hosting a
Ooh.
pleasure retreat in New York City with another sexologist. And yeah, that's for anybody that's like queer or with a pussy who is really wanting to have this devotional relationship and have amazing sex and stuff. So maybe we can meet up.
I
You're
would love
about
that.
being so
Yes.
fun.
This is so much fun. All the bye
Yeah.
vibes. And I've been really enjoying talking to you. Thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, thank you so much.
A very special thank you to Jordy for joining us in the podcast and just like bringing so much positivity and just like thoughtfulness to that conversation. And thank you for listening. As always, you can support bisexual behavior by following us on Instagram at bisexualbehavior. You can follow me on Instagram at talia.tatiana, and I'm also on TikTok at talia.tatiana. But the biggest way you can support is by subscribing on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and giving us a review. A review really, really goes a long way. As always, thank you again for listening, and I can't wait to bring you another episode next month. But until then, have a good one. Okay, bye.